We must go on. Genon, I know you do lobbying work for many years now in Brussels for a healthy environment, and you also collaborate with scientists, but I'm also sure you sometimes get frustrated from the input you get from scientists. So what would you suggest we should do?
Well, I don't know if we actually get frustrated. I think we get a lot of excellent input from scientists. Just for those of you who don't know, the Health and Environment Alliance is a European platform bringing together not-for-profit organizations, including health professionals, some scientific institutes, patient groups, women's groups, to do policy analysis and public awareness raising on EU policy level issues. So to start with, in terms of communication and what I think works, I think Professor Headley gave us an excellent website, which for me, when I was looking at that, I was thinking, oh, this is what we need for Europe when we're looking at the EU Air Quality Directive and how that's implemented by country. It would be very interesting because I think what people, if we want to motivate our organizations, which are often national groups or local groups, what we need to motivate them is something that's relevant to them and to their country. The same goes for members of the European Parliament. We deal with, as a policy advocate, we need to meet with MEPs, and they're interested in knowing, for instance, what is the air quality in their country, in their region, and also I think, on the other hand, I don't think information and communication in itself is enough. I think we can have an excellent website like we've seen in Hong Kong, and we still don't have the public engagement and the political will to use the science. And we've seen that very much in the EU Air Quality Directive that was adopted. Because the level of ambition, we had an incredible health impact assessment. We had all the right numbers, but yet politicians decided not to go for what we thought could have been the highest level of ambition and the greatest benefits, health benefits for society. So one of our strategies has been to look at how do we communicate better and increase more public engagement. I think, what do we need from the Aphekom project? I think we need clear and simple information. I think we also need more information on the monetary benefits, because this is something we're always asked, is this is going to cost too much, we can't do it. But if we can come back and say, well, actually, it might cost this much, but at the same time, we're going to have less hospital admissions, and then we can monitorize that. That often is a deciding factor and very useful from a public interest perspective. I also think taking the message and making it more positive is also a very, very interesting idea. And while I was thinking about your brainstorming session, Quentin, and one of the things that we're doing is working with those groups who are most vulnerable, which are the European national asthma groups across Europe. And because they are particularly sensitive to air pollution, and their members we've created a whole website, and we're doing more languages this year, because the message might be clean air. 1 in 3 children suffer from asthma today, but clean air can actually mean your child might not get asthma. And so, what are the positive benefits? And using those groups who are often very good and very interested in going and raising awareness. So I think that is a very important thing, as well as to bring it down to involve a wider section of civil society.
Well, thank you very much, Yorghos. As far as I know, you work in public participation for air quality plans and so on. And so I want to ask you, what's your perspective? How is scientific information and more importantly, uncertainty, how does it enter into these processes?
Yes, I would like to insist on the fact that I work with stakeholder. My research is on stakeholder participation and the way that they can actually come into the question of air quality management. And so I would like to say that there are maybe 2 different questions that we have to separate. And I definitely am situated on the second one. The first is whether public health scientists are actually saying that we should produce more stricter regulatory standards. That is, the current standards are not protective enough, which is probably true. But there is a second question about what the stakeholders how do they assess or how do they criticize public action to comply to current standards? And I am interested in this second part, and I encourage you, if you want to have more details, because I can only speak for a couple of minutes. I have a poster presentation on Friday where I give more indications about the results we have in our own survey about what stakeholders actually say, how they assess public action in the elaboration of action plans. So the question now is, if the stakeholders are involved in elaboration of action plans to manage air quality, which are normally elaborated to comply to current standards, how do they think, how do they project the implementation of these action plans in terms of efficacy? And there are two very important, I think, take-home messages here. The first is that they generally tend to accept the current information on health impacts. They do not question this information on health impacts. They believe that air pollution does have health impacts, and they do not actually ask for more precise figures or to give us more information, more science, more knowledge about this aspect. And the second thing is, when they are asked to criticize these action plans, they always come up with the same kind of commentary. It is a problem of political will. Now, if it is a problem of political will, that is that somehow they believe that there are solutions, but the decision makers do not adopt them. So this is a question which we might turn to the decision makers and see if they could indeed do something more efficient. And another conclusion that we drew from this survey is that there is, if health professionals are looking for allies in terms of communication and action, there is definitely a scope of getting together with urban planners who have to deal with this climate change and greenhouse gas emission reductions, because they do not have health endpoints. They only have climate change endpoints, and this is terrible lack of for focusing, because health impacts and air pollutants have local effects, whereas the climate change policy is more global. So I think that we should get together also with these urban planners and get a common strategy, both for climate change and for improving air quality and therefore improving health.
Thank you.